Let's call the meeting of the fiscal court to order. I want to welcome everybody this morning to our fiscal court meeting. We have some guests with us today to address the court. First is Bob Gifford, Water Vision 2020.
Yes, Judge. First of all, I have a draw request from KIA Fund B 1003, and it is for $975.29, and this goes to the Aurora Electric Incorporated, and this was to put the electrical to the tank at Brewers, and the amount is $975.29.
All right, you've heard the request.
Motion approved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries.
Judge, we advertised a bid for the telemetry on this same tank, and we received no bids. I then contacted the county attorney and Mr. Edwards to ask him if I could negotiate with a vendor to be able to find somebody that was willing to do this work. And he said that the court would need to approve this, so I seek the approval of the court to negotiate with the vendor to put the telemetry in the brewer's tank.
Is there more than one local company, or is there just mainly one that you deal with?
There's only one local, but nobody bid. We sent out to different people that worked on their system before, and they did not respond.
You make a motion to allow you to negotiate the best price.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries.
That's all I have, Judge.
Mr. Gifford, it's my understanding you are leaving Marshall County for a brief period of time, going on vacation. I want you to know I hate you. Have fun. Bob and his wife are taking a little trip, and he's been bragging about it, kind of rubbing it in my face, so I had to get on him just a little bit. Hope y'all have a good time and good weather, Bob. Next, from the Tennessee Valley Authority, James, are you or Scott going to be the spokesman? All right, James Adams. Jim from Tennessee Valley Authority, you have the floor.
James Adams, Senior Manager of Commercial and Public Recreation for TVA. I'm out of Muscle Shoals. Scott Brooks is with me here. Really just wanted to answer questions today. I know that you've talked with my staff a time or two about Big Bear Park and the easement that you've had. Marshall County's had an easement for 25 years that expired in 2011. And we need to put some agreement in place to continue that operation. TVA is very appreciative of what's been done there. We have hundreds of parks up and down the river. If you counted them all, from state parks to boat ramps to commercial recreation, there's probably 500 or so. And that starts up in Virginia, goes down through into Alabama, touches Georgia, Mississippi. And so our group manages those for TVA. There's lots of different types of agreements, from permanent easements to transfers. But the one we have here was a 25-year easement. With TVA's land policy, we can put, you could request and we could give you another easement for 30 years. There's differences in the terms that I use. If I talk about an easement as opposed to a license is a revocable instrument. It's something that I can approve at my level. I can write you a license that gives you a use of the property. It can be revoked by either party in 30 days. If we give you an easement, it's approved at, used to be by the TVA Board of Directors. Now that's been delegated to the chief, the CEO, and that's Bill Johnson. And so he would approve that. What an easement would give you is 30 years of a guarantee to use this land. TVA can't come back and take it away or change their mind. It's your land for 30 years. You might need that for grants. So there's a standard operating procedure. People who ask for the use of TVA land, and we get lots of requests. It's for, water intake, a sewer outfall. Maybe it's a bridge. We get lots of requests for commercial recreation, campgrounds and marinas. We get from counties and cities. They would like to have a public park, we'd like to have a greenway. So we give instruments, we have an agreement that shows, you know, TVA wants the entities to have insurance in case somebody's hurt, in case somebody falls off the swing set. We need to be clear on who does that. So there are things like that we want to cover with the instrument. So that's what we need. If you want to continue to operate Big Bear Park, we need to have some type of instrument. And obviously, to do something that I can approve at a license is a lower cost. If we go to the easement, it takes more review. There's other additional things we want to know. And from a, and just to give you I want to answer the questions in a minute, but I'm anticipating a lot of questions that you might ask. But when we go to tie up a piece of land for 30 years, we want to check with all the other departments in TVA, whether it's navigation, flood control, or the transmission folks. Look at your long-range plans. Where are we planning to do stuff down the road? So we don't want to do something that interferes. Things change over time. Sometimes we increase the boating density in an area. There could be complaints from neighbors. There might be a neighboring city or county that might be thinking of putting in a water intake. All these things could affect. Now, in the case of Bear Creek, we've looked at it and thought some about it. It's very unlikely that any of those would happen here. We expect it to be if you wanted a license, to take very little review cost. If easement, it's going to be a little bit more cost because we want to have an appraiser to say, hey, what's the value of that land? You know, we're not going to charge for the value of the land. You'd only charge for the administrative cost, something like closing costs. So TVA's processing cost for our folks to do the review, to do the checking, we would go through an environmental review. It wouldn't be much. With the National Environmental Policy Act, we have to document that we've done a review. Archaeology was done before. It was done 25 years ago. Archaeology doesn't change. The Fish and Wildlife Service, there are things that could change with threatened and endangered species. Since you're not changing anything, even if there are some animals or mussels close by, the fact that you're not changing anything, that should be minimal as well. But we have a process to document that. So that's what's embedded in our cost. If you look at the TVA website, anybody who proposes this, it's the exact same process. Somebody who wants an easement for 1,000 acres, for 500 acres, for 2 acres, it starts off with a $5,000 if you want an easement because of the level of approval and the level of guarantee. So it starts off with $5,000 and you pay whatever the cost turns out to be. There's a couple we're working on now around the valley. They're over $50,000. They're brand new sites and we're having to go in and do a full review because they're going to put in a campground, they're going to cut trees, they're going to dig and unearth and build roads. So we have those costs for easement it's going to be less with the $1,500 fee for a license, but it's only to recover those costs. And if let's say we start off with a $1,500 fee, it's like going to the mechanic, he says, for me to look at your car, it's going to be $200. If he gets in there and it's something very minor, he says, I only spent $50, I'll give you $150 back. If we didn't spend the $1,500, we'd give you the remainder back. If we spent more than that, you'd have to pay more for that. With the sensitivity here and with the concerns, we would watch that very close. If I saw that getting out of hand or we discovered something, we started the review and somebody said, hey, there's something here we need to look at, I would come back and communicate very frequently with you. But from what I know from this site, not any change. It's been there for 25 years. It's 6-acre easement. It's a 6-acre area, whether we do a license or an easement. I think we can do it for that if you want a license or less. But I'll keep you, I can't give you a guarantee until we start down through the review and see. But I can do the programmatic review, the environmental review. We can prepare the license agreement, which we provided an example of. It says, we want to make sure that Marshall County has liability insurance, it lists TVA as an insured. Just some small things like that that we need to take care of so that we can sign an agreement and give it to you for a license. If you want the easement, it'll take longer. We'll do appraisals. We'll go up and have the CEO to approve it ultimately. And since we're tying it up for 30 years, guaranteed, we'd do a little bit tighter review. We'd check with more folks. So that gives you a little explanation of what the differences are, what the differences in the cost are. With that, I'll be glad to answer questions for you if I can.
Just for clarification, if we say, well, we feel like, and it's my feeling, that we have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in our day-use parks here in this county. And if we don't get a easement or we don't get whatever, are you, TVA, prepared to keep it in good condition, keep the boat ramp going, keep the courtesy dock operational, and those type things, provide security as my sheriff has been doing for the last several years.
We'd make a decision. We operate, there's about 30 dam reservations, Watts Bar, Kentucky, Blue Ridge, where the public goes and visits. We maintain those. We've got campgrounds that we operate, day use areas, trails. We also have many sites, and I guess there are about 70, where there are boat ramps that are scattered around the valley among the 49 reservoirs that TVA maintains. We do the paving. Over the years, we've given agreements with TWRA and many others to operate those. So we would have to make a decision. If you said, Big Bear is not of interest to us, we don't want to keep it, we don't want to maintain it. One option for TVA would be to say, well, we're going to close this one. We're not going to maintain it. We're going to put a gate up. It could still be used as informal recreation. People could still walk across it. There's 300,000 acres out there that people can use. It wouldn't be restricted other than it might be restricted from access from vehicles and things like that. So we'd have a decision to make at that point. I hope we don't get to that. That's not what we would prefer, but if we came to that point, we'd have to make a decision.
Questions?
Am I correct that a license would not allow the county to apply for grants? You'd have to have an easement to do that?
We wouldn't have any restriction on that. Many times the granting agency will say they want you to have at least 10 years of tenure. We need to know if we're going to give you the money to invest in this, we need to know that you can stay there. For public easements, I can't think of one, and I've been doing this type of work for 14 years, where we took a public easement and said, we no longer want you to operate it. Now, there's been a few commercial ones where people have not operated up to snuff, electrical violations and things, where we've canceled those. But generally with the public, we've not come in and said, hey, we want you to leave. We've not taken that 30-day revocable and revoked one to a public agency. Now, it's possible, it's always there, but the requirement about the grant is not TVA's, that's whoever's providing the money for the grant. So if someone would provide the money on the grant, and we could talk to them, we could provide the information like I've just given you, but ultimately the agreement would rule, and if something did happen and TVA came in and said, we need this property, it could do so on that 30 days. An easement wouldn't allow that.
In consideration for what we have spent and what we are spending on a yearly basis from Marshall County tax dollars, which from my sheriff, from my refuse department, from the parks employees, to our porta-johns that we provide at all of our TVA properties, we're spending approximately $116,440.62 a year. Do you, or would TVA consider that instead of a $5,000 payment in-kind contributions to keeping your properties in good repair? We mow them, how many times, Larry? Weekly, every other week? Weekly. We pick up trash, we provide porta-johns, we keep the boat launching ramps in good order, keep the courtesy docks in good order. Would TVA consider that as an in-kind contribution? I mean, that's a lot of money that we're expending of county tax dollars each year to keep your property in good shape. I mean, is that out of line? I don't see that as being an unreasonable request.
No, that's a good comment and a good question. The magnitude of it, of course, you're thinking of Kentucky. When you think of the magnitude of the whole reservoir system and it being 11,000 miles and 49 reservoirs, there are uses and requests quite frequently. And so there is a benefit that's being provided, and it's a public benefit. I can go use the park, others can use the park. But we find that, and again, we would not charge anything for the value of the land. If you looked at the value of the land, it might be several $100,000 if you thought of it as residential. If you think of it as public recreation, it's decreased. So we're not talking about the value of the land. We're only talking about TVA's cost. We would have those costs frequently because people are calling, literally every week. I get some call from someone who's interested in a piece of land, and it's generally areas of public recreation or commercial recreation. I don't deal with the ones who do the water intakes or the bridges, but we get those requests too. So even though I know you're saying, hey, we provide the mowing, we provide the police support, generally there's a benefit to the local community, more so than the widespread community. You know, anybody could come use it. People from Alabama, people from Illinois can come use this park. But it's a benefit to the local area from restaurant use, from hotel use, from other things. People coming in and people saying, hey, Marshall County's a nice place to live. They've got nice parks. I want to move there. So there can be a benefit back to Marshall County. So as a way to, I guess, kind of regulate that, the requester pays those processing costs. Not the value of the land, but those processing costs and those O&M costs. I understand the comment, and I wish we could, but the policy is that we don't do that, and it's primarily, it's such a volume, you know, from the 7 states that we work with, and all that, like I said, if you total them all up, from state parks, Ken Lake, Paris Landing, went down through them and listed them across the whole valley, there's probably some 500. So I hear what you're saying, but I don't think that would sway TJ's opinion to waive the processing cost. It would still be.
Well, it was waived when we first gained access to the properties. There was no fees, no payments made to TVA. Now, I understand that from what you told me, it was paid out of the appropriated budget. And I know about the appropriated budget. I was there when the Reagan administration did away with the appropriated budget. I was president of a group called the Association of Tennessee Valley Counties. I'm well aware of the reservoirs in 7 states and 201 counties that is provided electrical service by the Tennessee Valley Authority. I visited all of them. So, you know, when TVA then decided, after we, ATVG, went to Washington, got the appropriated budget restored, then TVA made that decision. We didn't make it, local governments didn't make it, you made it to do away with the appropriated budget. What I'm saying is, and what I'm asking you, and I would be willing to go before the TVA board or anybody else to plead my case, and I may ask to do that because I think it's totally unfair that TVA would require us to pay a fee to improve the properties that is used by the people and the citizens of this county. And if you go down to Bear Creek on any given day, and Mr. Edwards, you use that park, I think you can attest to the fact there are plates from Illinois, Alabama, Tennessee, and other areas that use not only Bear Creek, but Buckhorn Bay and other areas that we have around this county to provide people access to your reservoir. And I'm not trying to be hard to deal with, James. I'm just saying I don't think it's right, and that we should have to pay. And I would submit to you, and we will give you our service estimate and our invoice of the monies that we've been providing all these years.
We're not planning on turning over one shovel of dirt either. This is a fully developed location, but the fees are starting just the same as if it was totally undeveloped.
Right, well, there will be a cost in putting a new agreement, whether it's a license or easement. The one we have now is expired, so there's cost for my staff to coordinate that, to do the environmental documentation, which is not a lot. Most of it's a check-off, but to call the folks in TPS, the transmission folks, and say, hey, what's your long-range plan? Someone to prepare that agreement and to seal it and to sign it. And so I understand. I wish it could be, and I will monitor that. If it can be less than 1,500, it will be. I can't give you a guarantee on that, but it's consistent. It's the same. If Jackson County, Alabama, asks or requests, which they do, or if it's Washington County, Virginia, it's the same process. It's 1,500. If we don't spend that, we make a reimbursement. But it's only for TVA's cost, and primarily this, it'll be labor, sometimes it's travel. Sometimes, one thing that we do is we make a public notice. We want if we're doing a new agreement, we want the citizens to know what's going on. If there's any concerns, they can write to us. Sometimes there's concerns, I don't want it. Other times, there's concerns that maybe have more substance to it about, well, And it's one thing we hear sometimes is about density of boats. We hear about, now that you have a campground there and you've got all these large RVs, the roads won't support it, you know, that culvert, that bridge. We get those kind of issues that come up. And so we deal with those, we respond to those, and we try to check them out, investigate them, and take action if there's anything. I don't expect that here, but those are the kind of things that we take into account.
Is this the only location that this is an issue here in Marshall County, or do we have different reservoir locations that are in the same boat?
I think you've got about 4 other easements that are set to expire, but they're years down the road.
Okay, so when they expire, it's gonna be the same situation?
Yes.
I guess I just don't see this the same way. To me, it's like if you start a business and you're renting somebody's property, you still pay your rent even if you develop a successful business. And I think that the county opted to develop a park on TVA grounds, and I think that we're fortunate to never have paid any fees for that. And I don't think $1,500 is unreasonable, considering that we provide a really good service to the people of that community. And as I said last time, I certainly think that we spent $1,500 on a lot of things that provide less of a service. So to me, it's, you know, you still pay your rent check if you go out and build a business on a rented piece of property. You still have some sort of a monthly obligation to someone, and this is not our land, so, but it does provide a good service to people in that community, and obviously, as Bob said in the last meeting, it's a tourism issue for the county. So to lose those parks over $1,500, I think would be a disservice to the community.
Okay, let's assume that we did the license and we did $1,500. When would that be due again? Is that yearly, or every 5 years, every 10 years?
The license doesn't have an expiration date, so it can continue indefinitely.
But the license does, if I understood you correctly, means that in 30 days, you could say we're revoking the license.
Right.
But what's the history of that? I mean, when I spoke with you before, it's non-existent as far as the history of that happening. Unless there was an environmental hazard, I think was my understanding.
That's correct. That's what I was saying earlier. My tenure here, 14 years, I don't recall us taking a public recreational easement from a license and saying we're going to revoke it. We have some commercial, and I'm not saying there's not one out there, but just haven't seen an occasion where we've done that.
So on this one, let's say we do the license, $1,500 for the review. You don't foresee, unless there's a change in rules or regulations, there being another $1,500 due 5 years from now, 10 years from now, assuming everything stayed the same. And then on the other 4 or 3 that we have, same situation, $1,500 for that one, $1,500 for this one, going forward.
You could at some point in the future, if those others expire, and said, hey, we wanted to take and get all 4 of these under the same easement. They're 4 geographic areas. We would put them under one easement, one 30-year easement. So you could consolidate at some point in the future. And nothing prevents you. If you get licensed next year saying, hey, we've got some grant funding at risk here, we want to get an easement. Maybe it's paying for that administrative cost to be part of the grant fund. But there's nothing to prevent you. An easement, I mean, a license will give us the agreement for you to continue to use the property. Once it's put in place, there's nothing else that's required. It can go on for 30 or 40 or 50 years, but it could stop at any time. If for some reason you said, 30 days, we need you to move.
By either party.
Either party.
If you
An
could-
easement just gives you the guaranteed rights. It's just like you're buying your property and recorded at the courthouse. That gives you the guarantee on it for 30 years.
If you consolidate all the easements into one, does that start with a single $5,000 payment, then the review for the entire?
I think we would. If you're going to do all of them, we're going to have one instrument. It's going to have 4 property descriptions, but the easement will read, it's going to be with one entity, Marshall County, and all the stuff in the easement, you know, where we're asking you to do certain things or to carry liability insurance, all that's going to read the same. So
Yes.
I think we would.
Would that be a cost savings to do it all in one?
I think it would, in your case with all of these, if somebody brand new, and I was talking about the $50,000 earlier, we have to do a physical land surveys. Surveyors go out and put in points. We have to do much broader environmental review of new stuff. But with this, a lot of the things are in place, so we don't have to do those surveys. We would want to do an appraisal. We would do the programmatic reviews, flood control, natural transmission. So there would be some cost savings, just because you've got all these people looking at it at the same time. They're focusing on one county in the valley. And if they had to make trips out here for some reason, they could do all four of them. Hopefully, there wouldn't be any need for trips for people to come out here and look at archaeology or threatening and dangerous species. But I think there would be some cost savings of doing them simultaneously. I'm not looking, I don't need a decision today. I'm not asking for that. I'm just here to answer questions, so we need more time to think. If you needed to send me questions separately apart from this, I'll be glad to respond to that.
Well, I'm just curious to know, because when you take into consideration everything we spent, the taxpayers of Marshall County, we're over $500,000 in developing these parks for the citizens of not only this county, but anybody that wants to use it. And I mean, I've been told, and I think you said it, James, our obligation is to the ratepayers. Well, sir, I'm a ratepayer too. And I think everybody in this county, just about, unless they're on Jackson Purchase, are ratepayers of TVA. And to me, I think we should be given consideration of the dollars that we have spent and the ongoing expense that we have every year that we should not have to pay for an extension on our easement. The court, it's up to the court what they want to do.
But wasn't that the county's choice to develop a park there?
It was our choice, Ms. Drew, because the people of that area wanted it.
Right.
There was private people. There's people in this room today that was at every meeting that we had back then.
So I guess
All
that's
up
my-
and down that road, we
That's
had
my
meetings
point.
at private homes.
It was of value then, and we were fortunate to not have to pay anything and developed a really good thing, and I just don't see that $1,500 is worth throwing what was then of value and is today of value away. The same court last year looked at over $100,000 a year at the refuse that was being just thrown away, and we dealt with it much different. I happen to think this is a TVA issue. And of course, we had the issue with the campgrounds, and there's people.
Well,
upset
that's your
about that.
opinion being thrown away, Ms. Drew. I think you're
Well, I
trying to
think we-
compare apples to
I think
oranges here.
the point is,
I'm
this
talking
is
about
$1,500, and
Well,
we've
I'm-
done all these cost estimates, but
You
if
vote
we
how
looked
you
at
want to.
everything like that, I think we would come up with cost savings in other areas, not just something that deals with TVA. I think this is an issue because it's TVA. At the end of the day, it's $1,500. The park is worth it. The people think it's worth it. And to me, we're wasting a lot of time bickering over $1,500.
Make your motion, Ms. Drew, if that's what you want to do.
Mr. Michael, Judge,
Yeah.
I was one of them that helped start that thing. I live in that community. We collected money, private money, gave to the county to help develop that. And I guess it's a principle thing. $1,500, like Mr. Draper said, is not a lot of money. But it's a principle of the thing, that how we kept it. We went down there, public citizens, we mowed it, we picked it up for a year or two, till the county took over maintenance of it. And I think, and I got on the internet, and I know this is a government land, and Sky 2 Lake in Oklahoma. You may be familiar with it. But Mr. Ronald W. Howell got 280 acres lakefront property for 50 years rent-free lease. If they can give rent-free leases for 50 years or 280 acres lakefront property, I can't see why we can't just sign the papers on this, continue on maintaining it. I don't understand it. I mean, it's all government.
I'm not aware of the site you talked about, but, the rate issue, there are people in Jackson, near Jackson, Mississippi, the fire service area, they're ratepayers, people in Memphis, people in Paradise. There are people outside the valley that don't connect to the reservoir that are ratepayers as well. With this, we're not trying to make money, we're just trying to charge the requester for TDA's cost and processing. There are new environmental rules, over time that has become, we've had more things to do with archaeology, with threatened and endangered species. So TVA, being a federal agency, is subject to all that, and so any decision that we have to make sure we abide by those laws. So that's what the fees are set up for. Most of the times, most of the requests we get, it's going to exceed the 5,000. Like I said, it may go to 50,000 because it's a new project, and there's things that have got to be considered. We've got to get sign off from the State Historic Preservation Officer, from the Fish and Wildlife Service for various things.
Do
So-
they charge you fees for doing this?
The Fish and Wildlife charges? No,
All these different departments?
no.
Where does the 1,500 come in at then? Who's getting that?
TVA. TVA's people who are processing this request. Part of it might be if we did an appraisal, if we were gonna do the easement, you'd have an appraiser to appraise what the property's worth. The environmental folks who review that, if we had archaeology, if we had, we've got to have biologists looking at the threatened and endangered species. We got people on my staff who are actually writing the document that's gonna be signed. We wanna put a public notice in the paper, whatever the paper's gonna charge us, to put that advertisement. It's gonna say, here, Marshall County has requested Big Bear Park for a license or for another 30-year easement. People will send us emails, they'll send us letters with different comments about that. We respond to those folks. Really what we're trying to find out, is there anything there that we're not anticipating? Are we setting up some type of conflict? Most likely here, I understand it's not, but in cases we do get some real conflicts. I've got a petition with 1,600 names on it right now from another state where there's a great opposition to a 30-year easement for a public park. Don't expect that at all here. It's been here for 25 years. But those are the type things that we get involved with. And you have something where you can have interferences between, you put in a boat ramp and you start bringing many people to the water, hundreds of boats for a fishing tournament, and it's right at the mouth of where the barge terminal goes by. I don't think that happens here, but those are the type things that we want to consider as we go through before we do something here, before we tie it up for another 30 years per se. And like I say, we're building transmission lines every day. We're building them around Nashville. I have no idea, no concept that that's here. But we want to go to those folks and say, on your long-range plan, what is your load for West Tennessee? Are you thinking of transmission lines? There's a few dams that we've raised, Beach, Cedar, up at Fort Loudon. If you raise a dam and you're looking at a larger flood, that can affect the land rights. Where's the flood elevation is going to be? So those are, I don't think there's any thought at all about doing anything different in Kentucky like that. But we want to check that out. If there's going to be a change, and there's going to be a difference of where the 100-year or the 500-year or where those elevations are, we want to know that where we can tell the easement holder where you can build certain things, because you wouldn't want to be below the floodplain. Again, these are just general things that can happen around the different places.
We're mighty proud of the park, but my next question is this: do you have to hire outside people to do all these studies, or is it in-house?
It's, we can go outside, but it's mostly in-house. In this case, it would all be.
These people are already on the payroll anyways.
The biologists, the appraisers. Now that's something we could do that we've started doing. If you said we want an easement and we want an appraisal, I need to know what the value of the property is. I possibly could give you a list of 3 appraisers, private appraisers in the area. Marshall County could pay that directly. They wouldn't pay it to TVA. Maybe there's a cost savings there. Paying for the public notice to put in the paper, rather than having TVA pay it, you could pay that directly. Maybe there's some cost savings. There's things like that we can do.
But we still don't have to pay, like for you to sign the papers and the other people that's already within TVA that's drawn and paid already?
That's right. It would be.
That don't seem right, James.
Well,
I mean, you're already getting paid. And that's part of your job to do this. So why would we have to pay extra if you're already getting paid for it?
Well, for a clear example, take a site where there's no development whatsoever, and a county says, we would like to develop a campground in a day use area on 50 acres here. And there's archaeology there, there's lots of other things. We could run up a bill pretty quick of $100,000.
But we don't have that problem.
But yes, you don't have that particular problem, but there is administrative expense that TVA is going to occur because of this request, because of the agreement.
But the people are already on payroll. Already drawing pay now.
Right.
Whether they do that or don't do anything.
Right, but if I had 100 of these.
I rest my case.
I understand, and I don't mean to be argumentative, but if we had.
Well, And James, again, I just feel like that we should be given consideration for what we have spent and what we continue to spend on the park, boat launching ramps, the courtesy docks, the picnic facilities that we provide at our cost. And I don't think we're getting any consideration for that. So, any other questions, James? I don't want to keep him tied up. Yes,
If I heard correctly, you said that our lease expired in 2011, it's 2013, so apparently for 2 years, there's no charge for us to keep operating. Why now, in 2013, have we decided that there's a charge?
We discovered that it expired. Again, there's 500 some days. Sometimes they slip through this one. And so it's not a yearly charge. There's not an annual charge for the use of the property. It's because the agreements that we had expired. It's no longer good. So for 2 years, or a year and a half, we've been operating and there's been no agreement in place. We need an agreement in place for liability purposes, for other reasons. And so to put that agreement in place is where we're making a new decision, either to do an easement or to do a license. And to put that agreement in place, take some review before we make another decision to create that document. So that's what the cost is. It's a one-time deal. If we do it, we won't have it again. So we should have caught it 2 years ago.
Mr. Adams, I do appreciate you coming today and appreciate the information on the fact that, you know, we may be able to, if we decide to go forward, we may be able to take some of those costs up direct. A lot of times, part of this is the fact that we can't tell, in a lot of cases, what those dollars are going for. It's kind of hidden to us and an unknown, so any of those dollars that we could work out direct would be, to me, would be a benefit. But anyway, I would make a motion, Judge, that we table it until we can, this issue, until we can digest this information from Mr. Adams.
for the motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion's carries. The issue's tabled. Sheriff Byers?
All right, Judge, I do have the settlement for the 2012 franchise and unmined mineral tax settlement. And I just order. About a first report.
All right.
County clerk.
Okay. This is an order approving the 2012 franchise and unmined mineral tax settlement. The Fiscal Court of Marshall County, in compliance with state requirements, hereby approves the Marshall County Sheriff R. Kevin Byers settlement for the 2012 franchise and unmined mineral tax for the year of April 17, 2012 to April 15, 2013. Do we have any numbers on that, Kevin?
Yeah, you've got, I give you all a sheet of it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, you've all got the, got the unmined tax settlement. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve, Judge.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Who made the second? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries.
Thank you. I'll mail out.
Okay.
We'll get Tim to do that. We'll get you copies and,
Yeah, we'll have to get Tim to sign
Yeah.
that too.
yeah.
All right, let's move in. Is there anybody else to address the court? Nobody else? Let's move into correspondence from MediaCom. On or around May 29th, MediaCom will no longer carry U2, Channel 156, and in-demand PPV5, Channel 205 on your cable lineup. For any questions, you can call Lee Grassley at 319-395-9699. And that's from MediaCom. From the Department of Corrections, this is to our keeper of the keys, Mr. Roger Ford. Dear Jailer Ford, the Department of Corrections has reviewed the Marshall County Detention Center's plan of corrective action for the first annual inspection. The plan reflects good faith effort to comply with the standards, and your plan has been accepted as submitted. Please note, Jail Inspector Sarah Hughes will be following up on item 50 to ensure checks are being made as required by the Kentucky jail standards. This is an issue that must be addressed with all jail staff responsible for making such checks. This is from Jeff Burton, the Director of Local Facilities. So Roger has complied and is complying with all of their concerns that they had. From the National Guard, I wanted to take a moment and remind you about an opportunity for the citizens of Marshall County to express their support for a memorial honoring members of the Kentucky National Guard who have fallen in the line of duty. It was my honor to brief many of Kentucky County Judge executives during the CACO conference this past fall. To date, 145 soldiers and airmen have been preliminarily confirmed for inclusion on the memorial. Some 305 names still require significant research that may eventually be included. We have raised a total of $549,509.73 in cash and in-kind support, but we still have a significant need. We hope that you will join us. Major General Edward Tonini of the Kentucky National Guard will be contacting individuals and fiscal courts in the future and provide additional information regarding the memorial. I have the information if anyone wants to be a part of this effort. Colonel Charles Jones met with us at CACO and discussed this. It's a real effort, honorable effort to honor our guardsmen, men and women who serve in our guard. We have a proclamation that has been sent to us, whereas in appreciation of the Kentucky veterans who fought for our freedoms, and whereas the day, May 25th, 2013, has been declared Thank a Veteran Day at the Kentucky Veteran and Patriot Museum in Wickliffe, Kentucky, to commemorate and honor those serving now and all who never return, as well as the ones who have passed on through the years. Now, therefore, I, Mike Miller, County Judge Executive of Marshall County, do proclaim the month of May 2013 as Thank a Veteran Month. What's your pleasure?
Make a motion, Judge.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Motion and second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. Let's move into old business. You've received copies of the minutes of the April 16th and the April 29th meeting of the fiscal court. Are there any direction, or corrections or additions to those minutes?
The only thing I saw that on the discussion about the additions to the park, it might be noted in there that it was discussed about the possibility of exploring some opportunities with the business community in helping to bring some of those projects in. It talks about the projects, but it doesn't talk about the possibility of partnering with the business community to help bring some of them about.
Anything else?
Make a motion to approve, Judge.
I have a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. At our last meeting, of course, we had bid openings, and there was some confusion on the culvert bids. We awarded, I believe, the bid. Russell, help me out.
Hagan and Stone.
Hagan and Stone, because the other bidder in the year before, it was something to do with delivery price,
Yes, and minimum orders.
minimum order. But that was not included in their last bid, is that correct?
Well, they didn't say either way. They didn't make it known if that was a delivered price or not delivered price.
Has this since been cleared up?
I mean, nobody has talked to me except Hagan and Stone. And I feel like that they're closer to us. The other one is in Jeffersonville, Missouri, and sometimes we special order sewers, and Jeffersonville, Missouri is a pretty long ways off. And Hagan and Stone has got a local distributor in Paducah that helps us out a whole lot.
So it's your recommendation that we
I recommend we still stay with Hagan and Stone.
stay with Hagan and Stone? You've heard the recommendation of your road superintendent. What's your pleasure?
Make a motion, Judge.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. There was also confusion on the fire extinguisher and the emergency lighting bids. I'm not sure what the confusion was or where it came in. Melanie, do you wanna,
Well, Emily's got the bids.
all right?
The two companies, one company, Premier Fire and Safety, bid all of the items that we had requested on the proposal. So that would not leave any kind of guesswork to what they may charge. There's also no minimum invoices, no delivery fees or hidden charges that was specified per their bid. The other company only bid the fire extinguisher portion and not the lighting portion. And they were within a few cents difference on the fire extinguisher items. However, I feel like we'd be more comfortable going with the company that did, the Premier Fire and Safety, that did bid the entire requested items, so that when we get to lighting charges, if we chose to go with First Line, that where they didn't bid those, that we might be opening ourselves up to higher prices. And they had performed some services for us in the past, and their prices were very much higher than what they currently bid.
Saying all that, what is your recommendation?
I recommend that we go with Premier Fire and Safety just to lock ourselves into low prices across the board for the extinguishers and the lighting.
You've heard the recommendation of the county treasurer. What's your pleasure?
Motion to approve,
I
Judge.
have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. As you know, we have completed the paving out at Opal Lane. This is a situation where the people on Opal Lane all chipped in and paid $120,000 to bring their road up to standard, so that we would take it into the system and have a nice road. Well, turns out people are speeding on that road. So they have asked that we consider putting a speed limit on Opal Lane. And I'm assuming most of our, and that's a dead-end road.
Yeah.
Is about 35 miles an hour, is that correct?
I'd say probably lower it to 25 would probably be sufficient, because there's a couple places on there, 35 is a little too quick.
Okay, 25 is your recommendation.
I've been talking with Russell, and I think 25
All
would
right.
be sufficient.
Okay. Then, I'll just read our speed limit ordinance. Be it ordained by the Fiscal Court of Marshall County, Commonwealth of Kentucky, in accordance with the provisions set forth in KRS 189-390-5, Section A, and based upon the request of the affected citizens, and after review with the Marshall County Road Superintendent, the Marshall County Fiscal Court does hereby set the speed limit at 25 miles per hour for Opal Lane located in Marshall County. Do I have a motion for the first reading? This will have to be published in the paper and then a second reading.
Motion.
We have a motion by Squire Anderson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Squire Gold. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. Published and have the second reading. This is the ordinance. Oh, sorry. We have the second reading of ordinance 2013-02. This is the cable franchise for Marshall County. We did publish in the paper the paper of record, Tribune Courier, the notice of the second reading of ordinance 2013-02. The Marshall County Fiscal Court at a meeting to be held at 9:30 local time, Tuesday, May 7th, 2013, at 1101 Main, Benton, Kentucky, and the County of Marshall, Kentucky will consider for passage the following ordinance. An ordinance granting to franchise the non-exclusive right to erect, maintain, and operate in, under, over, along, across the streets, lanes, avenues, sidewalks, alleys, bridges, highways, easements dedicated for compatible uses and other public places in Marshall County, Kentucky, and the subsequent additions thereto, towers, cables, and ancillary facilities, for the purpose of constructing, operating, maintaining, and repairing cable service for a period of 15 years, regulating the same and providing for compensation of the county. A copy of the complete ordinance, of course, can be reviewed at our office at any time. Or we could have Jason read the entire ordinance if you would like, Mr. Darn.
I just say make it for review, Judge.
All right. I'd entertain a motion to pass the second reading.
Make a motion, Judge.
Have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. We have a request to change the lens on the animal control vehicle that was provided by the sheriff's department to our animal control officers, from blue, I guess it was blue to amber, right?
I think now they're wanting to go to clear instead of amber. It doesn't matter, I mean, amber or clear, either way.
Yeah, okay. This is a cost, I believe, of $143. But we'll need approval of the court to do that. I think this is something we've all agreed on, but I guess we just need to get it into the record.
Motion to approve.
Have a
Change it out
motion to
those
approve, is there a
covers.
second?
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. The animal shelter has been working with one of our dealers here in town for a cargo van, a 206 model. They have $3,000 that's been donated, and they need $2,600. And I think that, is that with trade-in?
That is with trading.
That's with trade-in. It's my understanding from our workers there at the shelter that this van, this cargo van, will suit their needs very well to take animals for adoption drives and this sort of thing. So we need to arrange for the $2,600 to be paid, or I think Mr. McCulley is giving them time to have some fundraisers, is my understanding.
He did. If the court didn't feel comfortable helping him out with a vehicle, he said that he would give them 6 months to help fundraise. So they used $3,000 of unspecified funds. You know, some of the funds they get are specifically for something, depending on who donates. But $3,000 of that was unrestricted from a large donation, so they put that toward it. I wanted to know if they had a vehicle, but it's no longer usable. The mechanic said it's just not in good repair, doesn't need to be driven anymore. So I'll leave it up to the court. I'm on the board, so I'm not going to vote. I'll just let you guys decide if you want to do that.
Well, I would recommend that we, in talking to the workers at the shelter, they seem to believe this particular vehicle takes, although it's a 206 model, it will take care of our needs for some time.
Yeah, I
It
don't
seems to
think
be
there's
in
no
good
doubt.
mechanical shape as best we can tell.
No doubt they need it to.
Oh, yeah.
Whether we come up with the dollars now, or if we put it in, go ahead and put it in next year's budget.
Sure, we whatever we need to
And
do.
then-
If they can raise the money, that's fine. If not, we'll make
Either
sure it's
way,
covered.
be
I think
however
all,
we think's the best way
I
to
think
do
what
it.
they're asking us to do is to confirm that we're gonna cover this, in case, we don't have the money there at the
Just
shelter.
Make a motion to put those funds in next year's budget, so then after July, if they need the funds, we'll finish up payment.
You heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. At our last meeting, I was asked to look for a refuge board member. Went back through people who have put in resumes, and I would recommend Don Copeland. I don't know Mr. Copeland. He's a graduate of Murray State University, has a BS in education, 30 hours above. He's presently works at Air Products and at Westlake. Lives in the 3rd District. As I said, I don't know him, but his credentials look awful good. And I would recommend Don Copeland. What's your pleasure?
I recuse, Judge, myself.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Pardon?
To approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve Mr. Copeland. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. Nuisance ordinance. Misty, I think that's one of the things you wanted to talk about. Is that-
Yes, in meeting with the Gilbertsville residents the other night, we were discussing the nuisance ordinance, which we've talked about many times, especially last year. And in all the discussions that we've had, we really haven't come up with a solution other than the county just coming up with the money up front to pay for some of these structures to be torn down, which in this economy we found out is very costly. So my question, and I wish Jeff were here because Jeff had kind of explained how planning and zoning, limited planning and zoning, would help us to then create a board that would directly allow us to cite people with fines beginning to incur immediately. Basically, you can't charge anyone for fines and fees that haven't accumulated, and our current system doesn't really allow for that, like it would in planning and zoning, which is how the city of Benton operates theirs. And that's why they've been able to address it so successfully. And of all the complaints that I've had as a county commissioner, nuisance complaints are by far at the top of the list. And I just feel like we have to do something, and planning and zoning is one of those terms that people are afraid of. But if it were done in a limited capacity to where it only includes what's already on the books, which is your junk vehicle ordinance and your abandoned structures, nuisance structures, is that something that we could do to at least allow us to address the issue? I mean, right now, people are so frustrated. They say, I've turned the form in, and nothing happens, and nobody cares, and nobody's doing anything. And really, when it comes down to it, we've got a 10-step process that even we as a fiscal court can't navigate through because it's so complex, and it just doesn't seem to work unless we just fork over the money, which is what we did last year. And so I guess I'm asking, could we have a workshop and maybe discuss our options, or talk with the city of Benton and see how they're doing theirs? Nobody wants to be told how to build a garage out in the county. Nobody wants to be told what color paint they can put on their house. But I do think they want somebody to have the ability to address these abandoned structures and junk vehicles. Nobody wants to live next to a junkyard, and people keep coming to us for help. And I feel like we have to be responsive in some way. I don't know what that answer is, but if the
Well,
city-
this has come up before. And the issue of county zoning has come up before. Just had a visit from a fellow yesterday, it's out in your district, Bob, out in the Aurora area where there's people walked off and left a home. It's a pretty home. I've got pictures down there in the office. I've got the health department out there today. They left an above-ground pool. 5 years ago, the pool was full of water. Kids in the neighborhood could fall in. I mean, and then the back, they just left things out there. Oh, I tried to find out, what's going on here. The fellow and his neighbor came to the fiscal court because they thought it was gonna be sold at the courthouse door. It was removed. Checking with the sheriff's office, the taxes are paid up to date on this particular piece of property by some tax service out of Texas. I thought it was a name, Cora Lee, and it's one word, Cora Lee Tax, Cora Lease. And I thought, well, that's some lady, Cora Lease. I don't know Ms. Lease, but then find out, then it was, but the taxes are paid. But it's a nuisance to those people that live. It's a nice neighborhood, beautiful homes, and the home looks good from the outside. I don't know what it is on the inside. But I don't know what to tell this fellow and his neighbors. I mean, so
Well,
we've got the health department out there today to see if it's not a danger.
Yeah, that's me. I mean, I do as I can. I don't expect any of the ones that work for me to do this. I take care of that because they've got more important things to do. Not to say this is unimportant, but we have to prioritize, and I get to it when I can. Problem is, and Commissioner Anderson can tell you this full well because we worked on several cases when he was sheriff. The problem is we have no help from the judicial branch. When we get it to that process, it seems to go away, and it's not on the county attorney's behalf. We can't get fines levied. We can't get any jail time levied. And I certainly think if we make an example out of one or two, then you'll see the cleanup start. But right now, we have no help from that area, and we're kind of at an impasse and kind of at a stalemate. I get to them when I can, but as I explained, this is a civil process now. It's not anything criminal, because that pretty much has been taken out of our hands. And it just takes a long time, because I've got to research and find who the property owner is and send a certified letter to not only the property owner, but the person who possibly is living there that may be renting that. And a lot of times that's very difficult to find. And that's why it takes such a long time. I know people are very impatient, very frustrated with me, but I am getting to it as quickly as I possibly can. It is an issue, yes, because there's places all over the county that I agree needs to be cleaned up.
We've
But
completed
I don't
cleanups, haven't
feel
we?
like that it should be the county's responsibility to pay a bunch of money out and not recoup that cost, because that's what's gonna end up happening.
And about the only thing we can do, as I understand it, Jeff, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is once we go through that process, put a tax lien on the property.
Yep.
And hope that we can recover. Now, in times past, and we've talked about this, and we started talking about this well over 25 years ago. We saw a trend starting up. You can go out in the community, in the county. Your city has planning and zoning, Calvert and Benton. Go out in the county, say in your neighborhood, Ray, build a $300,000 house, and a fellow next door to you build a chicken barn. Does that devalue your property? Of course it does. But there is nothing without some sort of structure in place to prohibit that from happening. Now, when you talk about a limited zoning, I'm not sure what you're referring to, Misty. I don't know. I mean, I know what you're thinking, but I don't know if
I don't know if
that can be done.
I don't know, Jeff, is it possible to do limited planning and zoning to only include the things that are already on the books, the ordinances that refer to the junk vehicles, abandoned
Well,
structures?
yeah, I mean, the means by which you get there is the same, whether you're gonna do extensive zoning or limited. You know, how you get there is the same. Once you get there, you can have as little or as much zoning as you deem, as your zoning board would deem appropriate. And there has to be a factual basis for doing that.
Right. Well,
But you're just talking about what's already made a nuisance by state statute.
yes, what's already considered a nuisance. In other words, the county wouldn't be creating anything that isn't already on the books. You're not gonna have, all the far reaches of what the city of Calvert and Benton does, but it would only be what's on the books at the state level, but it would allow us as a county to create a zoning board that would keep us from having to go through the court system. That zoning board in the city of Benton, that's how they address theirs. They begin levying those fines and fees through their planning and zoning committee, and so that's how they've been able to address their issues.
That's,
They circumvent.
the statute that makes those nuisances leaves it up to cities and counties to develop and then enforce a policy. So procedurally, you're wide open as to what you want to do to enforce that state statute.
So what they do is, once they notify someone, they give them a 10-day period to appeal to the board. I think it's 10 days. And then beyond that, if they're not in compliance, they begin assessing the levies and the fines. Whereas our system right now doesn't give you that ability right away. And the problem with that is we end up having to incur the costs up front. So somebody that lives out of state that doesn't care that you can't reach anyway, it's probably not going to be extremely effective. But somebody that is actively living in the area or is in the home and you've got a genuine nuisance issue, and I'm not talking about somebody that just doesn't like their neighbor's house, I'm talking about a hazard or a nuisance as defined by the state, then it would allow us to have a little bit of leverage, because nobody wants to have those fines and fees accumulate, or at least it's proven successful in Benton, you know? So,
What your difference in what you're talking about is it creating a different agency, and that way you have administrative penalties
Yes.
to
Yes.
enforce your zoning
yes.
laws.
Because you have no leverage if you can't enforce those penalties, and you can't recoup costs until you have fines or fees that have accumulated. So you have no leverage until you have fines or fees, and you can't have that if you don't have a planning and zoning board, which begins assessing those fines and fees once you're past the point of compliance. So
Now, when you talk about a board assessing fines and fees. We want to make sure the statutes are clear that we're not because Kev, what he said, it's hard to get this through the judicial process.
But
As it now stands
Yeah.
with the
I
ordinance.
think
Yeah,
you want
I
to be careful.
understand.
I don't think you want to call it a planning and zoning board either, because this is, it's more like a nuisance enforcement board.
Or, yeah, I mean, which a lot of people have
I mean,
a
it's just
nuisance
a-
enforcement code, but it's structured differently, you know?
'Cause if you get much beyond regulating what's already in the statute, then someone could complain that that's planning and zoning without having a comprehensive planning and zoning, and that would be contravention.
Which the county obviously doesn't want. I mean, now we've talked about it, nobody wants, you know, to tell people
The-
how to
the-
build garages or.
The only thing that would concern me is without comprehensive planning and zoning, and you start enforcing by a board, imposing fines or whatever, you're still gonna have to stand that test of the judicial system.
Oh, absolutely, but I mean, every one of us could drive by probably 10 places right now that no doubt whatsoever it would pass the test of a genuine nuisance. I mean, you know, you've seen these trailers ripped apart, they've just left half structures there, it's a danger, a hazard, those sorts of things are the things I think that we'd be taking up. The ones that are in question, you know, we got pictures last year that looked like people could be living in it, and it just looked messy, you know, that to me is not something that is of the essence.
Is
We
there
have,
other,
we have a criminal portion of that statute, or that ordinance now. And I think Kevin had the right idea. You don't want to cite somebody into court on a criminal side for something that's borderline. You want to pick out one that
but Jason, what I'm
Anybody
saying
can
is
agree on.
whenever Commissioner Anderson was sheriff, we did do that, and it still had a criminal element to it, and it does no good. Am I not?
But in the current, well, our current ordinance, and we've done this, I mean, that would be doing the same thing. Looks like if you're gonna charge fees regardless of how you do it, and if they're gonna clean it up, they're gonna clean it up, and they're not gonna pay the fees. And then eventually it'll end up in the same situation. You'll have to take the property or it'll put a lien against the property. And now we clean it up and then we put a lien against the property. And I thought at that point that we could force the sale in order to take care of the lien. I thought that's how so I mean, you can recoup the dollars.
What if there's other lien holders, associated with that property?
Others, yes, I know that's a
We're gonna be
problem.
last in line.
Oh, I understand that. That's true.
And we have to, see, we don't have any way to say that they owe us money until we've already expended money to clean it up. Whereas this other route gives you an ability to start collecting, or if the fines and fees begin accumulating before you've ever expended any county dollars on having to go clean up.
Do you know of any county, Jeff, that operates under that here in Kentucky?
the city of Paducah does that now.
I'm talking about the county though, not the cities, but the county.
Well, the cities, they base their procedure on the same statute.
Right. It's the same thing. I don't know of any counties that have it countywide, no. I mean, I'm sure the larger metropolitan counties do, but most rural counties, no.
I
You know,
don't, go ahead.
I'm sorry. In a county where you don't have tourism as your primary industry, it's probably not as big a deal, but that's what I hear time and time again, that we have people coming in, it's a tourism-driven community, and we have all these nuisances, and we really have no good way to abate them.
Let me ask your opinion, if we've got one of those, it's, a stout case, take it through the court system again, what do you think will happen with it this time?
Well, I mean, if you get a strong one and get pictures or maybe even video, and that way, between the time that you cite them and the time that it gets to a trial, so to speak, that they haven't cleaned it up and say, oh, everything's fine, that way we've got proof of what it was, then I think that helps. But I think documenting with pictures and maybe even video is gonna be the key for a criminal case.
Well, but that's what we run into, is it was repetitively given to the person, I'll give you 90 days to clean up, you go back again, well, I'll give you another 90 days, then I'll give you another 90 days. That's what we run into, was it not?
Well, and
I mean,
once
this-
again, how much of that time how many nuisance complaints have you gotten in the last
Oh,
year? Can you
gosh,
count? That's,
too many to count, just to be honest with you. As a matter of fact, I've gotten in 6 in the last week.
so that's
You know?
one person funneling every nuisance complaint in the community, and he's responsible for finding who owns the property, finding who rents the property, getting those notices out. It just seems like our system is so, there's so many steps in it that you can't enforce it.
That's
Well,
the problem I have with
You're gonna
going
have
the
to do
judge.
that regardless of what
But if you
route.
have a board, it's a board that
Oh,
their sole
I thought you
purpose.
were comparing the,
Well, I'm
civil
comparing
and
our
criminal.
option. If we had a
Right.
board and their sole purpose was to review the nuisance complaints as opposed to everything having to go through the sheriff himself, would that not be a more effective way for us to be able to evaluate, the more pressing cases and see which ones maybe we can act on?
Well, I know on the current ordinance, there's been several places cleaned up.
Yeah.
And it didn't cost anything. The people ended up cleaning them up after the letters went out and they saw that we were serious about
And
it.
some will.
Yeah, and the ones that we've dealt with before, they weren't a major cleanup operation. I've got several out there it's gonna be several thousands of dollars to clean up. Matter of fact, just for example, the old Holiday Restaurant, that and the building next door to it, it's completely grown up now. Those folks do not live here, they've just left it. And, try to find those and whatnot, that's gonna be a huge expense to clean both of those properties up, huge expense. And that's why I'm saying, I don't know if we take it back through the judicial system, what's my guarantee that it's not gonna drag out like it has been in the past? Because we've done that before. In 90 days, that's 3 months. Then you go back and you get another 90 days, that's 6 months.
Well, we'll just start setting them for trial. If they don't get it cleaned up, we'll go on trial.
No, but I mean,
These are absentee
currently, how
owners
many
you're talking about,
days?
Kev, but we don't, do you even know who they are? I mean, that
Well,
one particular
I've-
property, they're out of state, is that what you said?
Basically, what I've gotta do is I've gotta go through, our system with, property and stuff like that. I mean, the people do pay the taxes on them, but, I've sent letters and stuff to them. I don't know if you're familiar with the one I'm talking about, the old Holiday Restaurant, not where the
Well-
RP barn is, but the one on the other side.
Right.
That place is completely grown up. I mean, there's trees growing through the structure.
well, here's your problem. You say these folks are out of state. It's a violation. We charge them, assuming we can get service and get a conviction, they have to pay a fine. They don't ever come to Kentucky.
That's what I'm
You're
saying,
never
yeah.
gonna, until you go in and clean it up, you're never gonna gain any. That's the
right,
reason.
And we
that-
can do that now. I
Right,
mean, we
right.
can go that with our current ordinance. We can go in and clean it up and then put a lien on the property and,
If they're out of state, they're gonna get service on them anyway.
now we need to get someone to help. It's just someone to help Kevin go through these. I mean,
The process
current
I've got in
ordinance.
place, I've got a young man that's going through the academy right now, and he is gonna be Glenn Davis's replacement, because Glenn obviously had to retire because of health issues. So I was short in that area, and he will be taking care of all of our paper service, our warrants, civil papers, but I was also gonna put that on him to go around and get my evidence, my pictures, and get to the properties, because like I said, I get to them as I can, but he's gonna be out in the community anyway. It's not gonna be till about October until I get him, so to speak, because we've gotta go through all the training, the FTO program, whatnot, but that will give me some relief. But, if y'all wanna create a board, I'm more than willing to do that as well, because that takes something else off of me that I, can't really put the time to it that the people of this community want me to.
The only problem I see with our current ordinance is we can't recoup any fees until our road department or refuse goes out there and expends time and manpower. We can't recoup any fees, as I understand it. Whereas if we change the way we did it, once they're in violation and those fines and fees begin accumulating, then you have the ability right then to, once it gets to a particular amount, to assess a lien.
And another thing is, what's the availability of the road department or the refuge to be able to go out and do this once we're found in violation? Because they've got other duties as well.
And I don't want to type our whole meeting, but maybe we could have a special workshop on it and just look at what our options are and what it would take to explore those options a little further.
Okay. Animal control policy.
We had been talking about it. Jeff, do you?
Yes, I have well, I've met with city attorneys from all three cities. We have honed the proposal down to one that we think is workable. They are currently putting together additional ordinances for the city themselves that will work with that ordinance. So that is just about ready for presentation.
Marty's working on drafting.
Yeah.
And I got one from Jessamine County that's really extensive. I'll pass it on to you.
Okay.
Same thing.
County cleanup days?
I talked with Troy the other day at the refuse, and he was explaining to me that due to their budget cuts, that they can no longer do the county cleanup days, which I know started last year. And Aurora, Hardin, and Gilbertsville had always been able to take advantage of those days where they would bring in roll-off boxes and that sort of thing, and give them an opportunity to clean up, and then they would come and remove all that. I know the residents in those areas are pretty upset about not having that anymore, and I was wondering if maybe there was some way that we could work with the refuse department to try to come up with an option. I don't know what that would be, but I did want to bring it before you all to see if maybe they might not have as many roll-off boxes as they did before. Troy had mentioned that we get the garbage tax. The fiscal court gets that every year, and he thought that might be something that we could work with the refuse to help maybe divert some of those funds to help with a cleanup day. Or if that's something we just don't want to do anymore, but I did want to bring it before you and let you
What's
know.
the
I
cost
like
now?
the idea of a cleanup day. The board will be meeting next Tuesday. If you're available, we'll go out and meet with the
Okay.
board
Just see what-
next Tuesday, and I know, I mean, it got to be very expensive. It was costing about $17,000 a year to have these cleanup days.
Each one.
But, yeah, they're very expensive, but maybe we can work something out that we could have, even if it's a limited cleanup day. Normally, what we hope on those cleanup days is get the big items, not your household garbage, like we ended up getting down in Gilbertsville, but
Well, they have, I mean, they've been doing one, they just had it centrally located at the old dump, you know.
Yeah.
Had people to bring, and they had extra people ready to take in tires and extra manpower to handle that. And they had, it's my understanding that they may be going to do that periodically, but not go out to the specific smaller communities. But we can discuss whatever, we want to try to
we'll meet
fund.
with the board next week and just kind of brainstorm and, because I think the communities kind of like the idea of a cleanup day.
I think so too, and it helps keep stuff out of our ditches and things
absolutely.
like that. Gilbertsville doesn't have, old Gilbertsville doesn't have a real close area where they can dispose of things, and so it's just helpful to keep that stuff out of the wrong places.
Gilbertsville drainage.
That was the other thing that Russell had gone out there with me. You all know the problem in Gilbertsville, it's flat. But what's happened over the years is every individual property owner has done something on their property to try to mitigate the water issues. So you've got ditches dug on this side and ditches dug on that side, and then they've gone over and clogged this drain, or they've gone over and built a dam on this one. And so who would be responsible, or who could come in and look at aerial views to create a drainage plan for that community? Is that possible? Every one of those residents out there are affected by water every time it rains. And the road department is expending a lot of hours and a lot of manpower trying to go out and clean out this ditch or that ditch, when really it probably needs to be mapped out to where someone could tell us where all that water needs to be routed and how to route it properly. Because I appreciate that the road department's been there. They've been out there every year that I've been here doing something for those residents every time they've asked. But it's getting to be a lot of money and manpower when probably it needs to be looked at from an overall picture as to how to divert that water. So I don't know who would do that. Would that be Florence and Hutchison, or I don't know if it would qualify for a core project? Who would do that to help us figure out how to route that water?
And this was looked at before, and going back several years, Commissioner Drew, and I don't know, but it seemed that the bottleneck was on railroad property. Am I correct?
Yep.
that in order to get proper drainage, the railroad had to do some work to get that water out. And they have not seen fit to do that.
Some of the problems, the ditches runs between property owners, not along beside the ditch, or roads. And a lot of them ditches is filling up, but we ain't supposed to get off the right of way, and it'll run, it'll run until it gets to the private property, then it just stops.
Then they have stagnant water pooling, and then they have issues with snakes, which is what, and mosquitoes and everything else, so. I mean, I'm not an expert, I could go out there and look and see how the water needs to flow, but I can tell that each of them trying to mitigate their own problems is causing problems for the neighbor, and they're all over there bickering because one solution is another's problem, so is there anything as a county we can do to help figure out what that drainage plan would be? Or if there's already a study that's been done, is it available to where we can take a look at it, maybe create a 5-year plan instead of the road department just going out and trying to address one person's issue and taking their time and manpower? Is there something?
Russell, were you with the department when we got permission from the old fire chief, Jimmy Dexter's daddy? We dug a ditch across his property.
I don't remember it, but
It's been 30 years ago, I guess. Maybe Jimmy can remember, to try to relieve that. And it did the job for a while, but then it got clogged up down at the railroad.
I'm pretty sure that's one of the ditches that I seen the other
That
day
big wide
that
one?
needs to be cleaned out again.
Well, we dug that ditch, I'm pretty sure, with and I think it was Mr. Dexter that gave us permission to do that in order to relieve the water problem back on the other side for his neighbors. Mr. Dayton Dexter, y'all may not remember him, but Mr. Dayton.
But right there is one of the ditches that needs to be
Right.
dipped out again.
So what's the process of figuring out how we,
Well, I think we'd have to show it was for the public good that we put county equipment on private property and with the landowner's permission. I don't know who owns that property now. I think Mr. Dayton has passed away. I don't know if Jimmy or I can check and find out who owns the property. But over the years, I'm sure that ditch has
street full?
got filled up, but Mr. Dayton gave permission in order to help his neighbors out. And we, county attorney at that time, and I can't remember who it was even, said, well, it's for the public good and serves a public purpose for us to be on private property to do that. And we did.
We had a lady that was so desperate the other day, she wanted to light it on fire with gasoline, and thank goodness the sheriff was there to advise her that that wasn't a good thing due to ground contamination. But that's my point, they're so desperate to get this issue mitigated that I'm afraid we're gonna end up with some problems down there if we don't maybe try to come up with some sort of a plan. So I'll go to the GIS office and see if maybe we can get an aerial view and check out the property owners.
Yeah, and let's talk to Chief Dexter and
Okay.
see who owns his dad's
Okay.
property, because he's the one that gave us permission back then, Commissioner Drew, and that's been many, many years
Okay.
ago.
I'll get that.
There's
for you.
also a lot of driveway culverts that stopped up too.
And one of the business owners down there even offered to buy culverts for everybody on their street. You know, they're willing to do their part to help. They just need some direction on, what that plan should look like and how best to use those funds.
Okay. West Marshall Fire Protection District appointments, as you know, the E&O and Harvey Brewers fire boards have recommended, they have combined and recommended 7 members for temporary appointment by the Marshall County Judge Executive to the District Fire Board of Trustees to act until elections can be held in June in accordance with KRS 75031. Each member recommended is qualified for the respective trustee position. Firefighter members, Butch Wyman, Anthony Sled. Landowner members, Audria Henson, Gary Teckenbrock. Appointed members, Johnny Hamlet, Amanda Holly, and Rhonda Henson. Now, the firefighters and the landowners, of course, will be elected. The appointed members, Johnny Hamlet, term to expire 6/30/2014. Amanda Holly, term to expire 6/30/2015. And Rhonda Henson, term to expire 6/30/2016. I would recommend these people to make up our new board for E&O and Harvey Brewers Fire Department. Is it going to be called the West Marshall Fire Department?
I think so.
West Marshall Fire Protection District.
Motion approved,
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Any opposed, no. Motion carries. We have been here a pretty good while. Would you like to take about a 5-minute break? We'll be in recess in about 5 minutes. Call the meeting back into regular session. Go into new business. We have the standing order for salaries and utilities for FY 13 and 14. Each of you have copies of that. This is a standing order that we do each year for salaries and utilities, maintenance, those sort of things. Are there any questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the standing order for recurring expenses.
Motion to approve the order, Judge.
Motion by Mr. Gold. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Drew. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Any opposed, no. Motion carries. Do I need to get all of them to sign this?
I think you can just write it in or them sign it, whatever's easiest for you.
All right, next we have the Alma Bryansburg Fire Protection District Audit Report for your review. There was no findings, significant findings on the audit performed by Kim Ham. They have a principal balance of $89,445. Any questions on the audit report for the Bryansburg, actually it's Bryansburg Alma Fire Protection District? I would entertain a motion to accept the audit report.
Motion.
A motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. Last year, in the General Assembly and in the budget, we were able to secure $700,000 in reimbursable funds to the county to build and improve the entrance to Marsh County Hospital. This is the road we're talking about, coming off the Oak Level Road and connecting to the hospital parking lot. We had surveys done. Our county surveyor some time ago. This is a bill that Representative Corsi introduced, and we have the agreement for us to proceed in going to bid. We have, I think it's about a 2-year period of time in which to complete this project. But I would need a motion to allow me to sign on behalf of the county to execute this agreement and start the process in getting ready for bids to be accepted for this project.
Make that motion, Judge.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. Get that to Secretary Hancock. Yes, sir. Workman's comp.
We got our estimates from CAECO on our workers' comp coverage and our CAF coverage. They did go up considerably. We anticipated that increase. However, we just wanted to let you know that the workers' comp increase was a little over $27,000, and the all lines is a little bit over $68,000.
You have a total increase of $96,275, which is a 21% increase. I met yesterday with our representatives from Peel and Holland. I also called yesterday afternoon and talked with Denny Nunley of CAECO. Also talked with Larry Elkins, with Judge Pruitt, with Judge Gallagher. Each of them received a larger increase, as a matter of fact, than we did, percentage-wise. Judge Gallagher has recommended that at the next meeting of the Area Development District, the judges get together. We got our numbers a little late, I think, to go out to the market this year. And probably individually, it would be hard for us to find a better rate. However, if 8 counties went together and went out to the market, I think we might find that rates might be a little different. Now, we go from 2011, 2012, where we had a 1% decrease, to 2012, 2013, we had a 5% increase. And then this year, 21% increase. And at the same time, our member fund equity has dropped considerably. And, you know, in questioning Mr. Nunley yesterday, of course, they say, well, you know, the tornado that hit Morgan County, that was the big hit. And I'm sure that's true. But bear in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that reinsurance kicks in after $250,000. Now, the reinsurance costs may have gone up tremendously after this event, but as far as money's coming from that fund, from GEICO, the most you're gonna be out is $500,000. And then Lloyd's of London, or whoever their reinsurer is, kicks in. So I just asked for a little explanation, and they said they would get back with me, but just wanted you to know, we did budget, we have this covered in the budget, but 21% going from a minus 1% 2 years ago, pretty bitter pill to swallow. Our drug-free workplace renewal. We have worked with what's the name of the group?
You remember?
Gary Mobley and Associates, for a drug-free workplace affidavit as a duly organized agent of Marshall County Fiscal Court. Mike Miller do hereby swear and affirm that this drug-free annual renewal affidavit that our company continues to abide by and comply with the provisions set forth in our initial drug-free workplace certification in accordance with 803 KAR 25-280. This includes, but is not limited to, providing a copy of a drug-free workplace statement to each employee and post the statement in a prominent place at the workplace, provide an alcohol and substance abuse education awareness training program, notify employees of actions will be taken against them for violations of the drug-free workplace program, provide alcohol and drug testing. The testing protocols includes breath alcohol testing and the 11-panel urine test. Goes on. This is something we've been involved in for how many years now?
Probably 5.
5 years now. So this will, renewal date, if you approve, will become effective the 12th day of May 2013. What's your pleasure? Have a motion, second?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries.
Judge,
Yep.
with that helps us out on our discounted cost, is that what
Yes.
this? How is this, what I'm trying to say, I'm still having problems with the drug testing folks. I don't want to be the one to cause us because of, it says, shall be the drug testing. Because of the way our schedules work, I don't know if Roger's having the same problems or not, but they're constantly getting people that are either on their RDOs or they work the midnight shift, whatnot, and I've tried to work with them. How many of them am I gonna be allowed to reschedule and redo on a monthly basis before they say enough's enough and we're fixing to strip you of this?
We've not had any complaints or any issues about it from the certification
Okay.
side. Because when we usually do that, the following month, we pull more, we reschedule. As long as we say these can't come, but they
Okay.
pull more names.
Because I've tried to provide work schedules for these folks to
And I
where they
think-
won't, do that, and they continuously do
And I
that.
think Randy with Insight, he would probably, it might be best if he would come, talk to you personally and work out arrangements.
I would welcome that, because like I said, I don't want to do anything for us to,
Sure.
lose our certification on that in any
Right,
way.
Jeff,
Yeah,
can you
I'll,
talk to Kevin?
get Randy your contact information and ask him to stop by sometime.
That would be wonderful.
Okay. The A&I Fair is coming up again. It doesn't seem possible that when is the fair this year, Mel?
May the 21st
First.
through the 20, whatever the Saturday.
This month.
Yeah, a couple of weeks.
Congratulations.
It's earlier than it has been. We went to our state convention in July, and the carnival that we've had for what, 10 years, Jeff? Gave Jeff a little surprise. Jeff is our fair chairman this year. You want to tell him what happened?
Well, we got up there and went to, we always meet and sign the agreement, and when we met, we were advised that they didn't have a date for us. So we suddenly had no carnival for the fair. Over the next 24 hours, we scrambled, and we now have Casey's, who also does Tater Day, in which we are very happy with, and we've got some added attractions this year in addition to the normal shows. We've got a clown circus, which have 2 shows each day, plus we're gonna have laser tag every evening. So for $10, I think there's lots of things that you can do to get your money's worth there, so.
Last year and in years past, the fiscal court has participated with the fair in purchasing a full-page ad in the fair program. Y'all remember that's what it looks like, it's $500.
I think we gave directly to the, I thought we gave directly to the fair. Cause y'all only get a percentage of that.
I don't remember how that worked
I
out.
don't remember either. We get money back from our ads, because- so the money doesn't just all go to the newspaper like in
Right.
some cases.
Yeah, it's like a percentage.
We get a percentage back on the ads, but I don't know about a direct contribution.
Do you know?
I'm,
Do you remember?
I'm pretty sure I do remember a direct contribution to the fair.
So that they would get all of that, I do remember that.
And you guys are listed on the thank you page, there's a thank you page with certain sponsors that help us throughout the fair week, and your names are on there as well, so March kind of.
They shouldn't be.
I don't like my picture being in there. I mean, it's taxpayer money, I think it's going for the event. I personally don't, I would just rather give it to the event, me personally, but, I don't know.
Now,
there's-
come on, Drew, you wanted only your picture.
I didn't even know it was in there until
Oh,
I just saw
now,
that,
come
'cause I
on.
thought we gave the contribution
Huh?
directly to you guys.
I just didn't do that myself.
Yeah.
If that's,
That way you
whatever
get all
y'all
of
wanna
it.
do.
And if y'all wanna make personal contribution, that would be fine.
Mine's in there enough for the wrong reasons, I don't.
Misty, would you like to move, we just make a direct
I don't,
contribution?
whatever you guys.
Be
Fine.
fine
I'd rather do that
That's
than have
2
her
weeks
name
later,
and picture
so.
in there. I don't like that.
I make a motion that we do the $500 contribution to the A&I Fair.
All right, you've heard the motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. Our animal shelter report. Animals brought in by, animals in the pen as of 3/31/13 was 37. Animals brought in by wardens, 28. Animals brought in by citizens, 54. Total animals taken in, 82. 39 dogs, 10 cats, 27 puppies, 6 kittens. We have adopted 72. No animals in foster care. Animals reclaimed, 8. No euthanizations. Animals in the pen as of 4/31, 39. We have adoption fees of $1,711. Ladies continue to do an outstanding job. They work on these adoptions. We had an adoption drive just this past week. I don't recall how many they adopted.
20.
Misty, 20? 20, so we appreciate the people continuing to work with us and trying to find homes for these animals. Road Department, Russell.
Like to get permission to have a surplus sale, and I'll give y'all a list of all the things that we'd like to get rid of.
You're asking to advertise?
Yes, I'm asking to advertise.
Make a motion, allow the superintendent to advertise for surplus property.
You heard the motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries.
Also, we've talked about getting some new mowers and everything, and I feel like we need to, try to start getting bids or do that reverse auction or whatever y'all want to do. Because it's going, there's like between 3 and 4 month wait after, you turn the order in.
We're looking at 2 mowers and tractors this time.
2 or 4, whatever, we throwed it around. 2 or 4.
What's figured in the budget this year? I don't even remember.
This year, there's only
I think
a little
2,
bit
but
left in equipment for this budget year. For next budget year, though, we did.
2, I believe.
2 if we bought them outright, but we was talking about,
The
possibly a lease purchase or borrowing the money. But we should have, if we get 4, we should have 6 tractors and mowers that we could trade in.
If we do 4 on the lease purchase, then the final payment all comes due at the same time, doesn't it? we were talking about the final payment coming due, if we did the lease purchase on all of them at the same time, that might be.
Well, it'll be divided evenly each year, I think, the way they do it. So whatever, we could look into how much that would be. Isn't that right? I mean, they divide it up evenly, the last payment. In some cases, they don't do it that way, but in the way that we looked at it before, it's an equal for like 5 years, is that right?
But just like last year, we had a $10,000 repair bill on one tractor, and that could go
They're
pretty
getting-
good on
They're
a,
getting, yeah, they're getting hours on them for sure.
Maybe look at, purchasing one or two and maybe leasing one or two or something like that. And because the leases, not that I don't wanna mess with it, but if it's something that we can afford to purchase outright, I mean, they're monthly payments, it is kind of a hassle in our office for the liability side of it. There's more reporting and tracking and things involved with it.
I thought they were making annual, I thought we did it with an annual payment.
They report in annual payments. They tell us this is how much you're gonna pay annually, but they break it down, we have to make the payments each month.
Monthly.
Oh, okay.
Would they allow you to make an annual payment if you're asked to? You paid it up
In
front?
some situations you can and some you can't. You would have to do it up front, where,
So could we do like another lease purchase now and let him buy two outright, like getting three?
Where we got two in this budget year?
In the upcoming budget,
Yeah. and
did we get
13,
two last
14.
year, Russell?
No, we still
Year
have some.
before
last
last
year.
year's
Year
budget,
before
don't we?
last.
like maybe,
But he
I
has-
don't have it
right
with
now,
me,
his
but maybe
budget right now.
50,000.
That's what we were wondering, if we did a lease purchase now with what's left,
The next one.
could we
But
then
we didn't have
buy
any
the
this
two new
year.
and that would get him?
I don't really-
staggered a little bit.
I think by the time even if we go with reverse auction or advertise for bids, by the time we get through that and then actually acquiring the equipment, we're gonna be
You're
in the
in the
next
next
6
year.
years.
That's what she said.
So
I
think
mean,
we'd
we
look at
could
the next
even,
fiscal
we could
budget.
even have it, July 1,
We
when
don't
want to
have,
purchase,
we don't have any funds for the current budget year right now for them. We said
You've got about 50,000.
Maybe 50,000 left.
that you won't need in equipment.
Right.
Which we can carry over. I mean, it's gonna be in the next budget year,
Yeah,
the time we can get
Right.
anything, or whether we go reverse
we've
auction,
only got 50 left.
or go ahead and bid.
If you all wanted to go ahead and approve the bid process or the reverse auctions, if we do it, we get started on it now and do it quickly, we would still have time to make amendments to next year's budgets to reflect those changes that you wanna make before it's adopted.
You wanna do two, or do you wanna stagger them with a lease, or what do you?
I don't know, I mean, I don't wanna start, we've got those others so we can hang on to fill in. If one breaks down, we can just set it aside, but I don't know. You think we needed the 4?
Yeah, I do.
This makes them come due again 4 at a time. We thought we were gonna get 2 and then 2 and then 2.
Because we've already running probably 4 years behind schedule, on replacing them
Yeah.
to begin with.
Let me ask you, Russ, we got the mowers started yesterday or?
Today, this morning.
Today. We started mowing today. And, of course, we tried last year, if you recall, using chemical spray, and it just didn't work out for us. So, how do y'all wanna do this?
Oh, y'all know.
I mean, it's obvious we need the mowers, we need the tractors. It's just a matter of whether you wanna try the reverse auction.
I
And
just
again, on that reverse auction, if we don't get the type bids that we want, we can reject them, according to Scott, that was here from Geico.
Well, yeah, I thought we were gonna end up just purchasing the 2, but now you've said that it's a little bit of a hassle on the lease. I would've thought if we were gonna get 4, we would just do a lease to own for all 4. That would spread our funds out over 5 years, which
We
was,
could pay an annual payment up front. It's just we don't wanna be in default.
wouldn't wanna be
That,
behind,
that
right.
if we wanted to pay the whole fiscal year's payment in July, we could do, I'm sure that they would allow us to do that, just one chunk. But we wouldn't be able to do it, say, in June and not make any payments until the end of the fiscal year.
I just believe if we can afford it, we'd be money off, ahead by getting 4.
We
The
should
rate
have the
has gone
funds
up.
to do
Huh?
the
So
lease
it's
to
gone up
own.
quite a bit.
And
Yeah,
pay for it
and-
up front,
and they're not gonna
right
go
out of the
down.
equipment budget.
And do forward.
What is your, what was the
Do
cost
annual
on the last two, Russell?
170 something, wasn't it?
Each?
No.
No,
both.
these are the two, but these, the last numbers that you kind of looked at were over,
They was-
like 220, 240.
What's that? They were about 90?
They've gone up quite a bit.
They were right at, they were like 90 or 92, wasn't it?
I think so.
I think that's what the tractor and mower that we looked at had gone to.
So do you need a bid to allow him to check into the reverse auction and then to look at the bid process for floor mowers?
I think what we need to do is allow Russell to decide, and you can talk to Scott and decide whether or not it would be to our advantage to do the reverse auction or just go to bid in the conventional way. Or you might wanna do both. I mean, you can reject them either way.
I don't know if he was, I don't know if he was real thrilled about having trade-ins.
It didn't sound like it.
No, he didn't. He said they have done it, but he just wasn't, he wasn't bragging about it.
Right.
You can just check into it, if it doesn't work out, then
The trade-ins are significant.
For us, yeah.
Yeah.
And on equipment like that, I believe you get more money by trading them in than you do.
Than you do by surplusing them.
It's always happened on, trying to surplus dump truck out,
Yeah.
that we've got more money on trade-ins.
Can we bid it in two options, to buy outright 2 with the trade-ins and then have another bid for 4
Lease.
that would lease? So that you all would have options to consider?
Well, from a financing standpoint, CAECO would finance the things through their lease agreements, whether we trade in or not. I mean,
I think we
that
found-
wouldn't matter. If we should come in with a dollar amount for them, then they'll take care of it.
Yeah.
And do it either way, whichever way we want to do it.
That was a Pacific dealer, but they had a better interest than CAECO.
Yeah, that happened, that is possible. Just have to look at all the options and that's, well, I'd make a motion that we start that process to look at, the purchasing 4 mowers and then look at, have Emily looking into the financing, the best way to handle it through either lease agreements or borrowing or furnishing funds. And then we'll see where we go from there.
second.
You have a motion and a second to allow Russell and Emily to proceed, getting quotes, prices together on 4 mowers and tractors. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries.
Russell, I know you just asked for money, but what about, I had told Russell the other day that someone had brought it to my attention that the Gradalls don't have, really good lighting where people can clearly see them on the side of the roadway. And I was asking him about the type of lighting that he has on his truck, that the LED flashing light. Is that something that you would have in your budget, or is that something that you think?
Well, after you mentioned that, it'd probably be really good to have them on them mowers too.
Well, people they're distracted, and, when we were pulled over at that really dangerous spot there on Little Cypress, I mean, you could clearly see it, for anybody that wasn't really paying attention,
The new ones, you could spec that way.
What about adding them to the Gradall? Is that something you can check on
Yeah.
price and just let us know what it would be? Or
I've talked to Joey a little bit on as far as,
they just have no lighting, to speak
That'd
of.
probably be good.
If anybody can put lights on it, they can. They're good.
yeah. I believe that one I've got in the back end of my truck's like $350. I believe what it was.
Is that something that we would have in the existing budget, you think, or would it?
I can't remember what we had on safety. We can find a
I mean,
place to put it, I'm
you
sure.
can,
That type
you
of lighting
can
on the Gradall?
No.
I know.
you can utilize some of those funds out of the equipment budget that we aren't going to be using to move that over into safety, or, I mean, lighting, I would consider that equipment.
Yeah.
It's not large equipment, but it's still equipment.
Do you feel comfortable having the funds to do that? You all?
That'd be fine.
We got 50,000 in equipment, don't we?
I'm not sure exactly, I don't have it right
No.
here, but it's,
No, we
it
ought to
should be
find
more
a,
than some lights.
we ought to find a, somewhere,
Be money well spent. I mean, for
so, too.
safety,
I hadn't
it
even
would
realized it
be,
till
yeah.
I noticed it for myself and somebody mentioned it to me, but it's needed, so.
Anything else, Russell?
nope.
Judge, going back to an item, Gibbersfield drainage,
Yes, sir.
I wondered if the Conservation District had got access to any people, engineers, or someone that could just evaluate that area. There's farmland and, but they're associated with this same area where this drainage is gonna go through, and they do drainage projects on private property at times if it's needed.
Russell, could you check in with the Conservation District to see if they have that service available? Let's look into it, all right? We've had an opportunity to review the bills. Do I hear a motion to pay the bills?
Motion paid.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion on the motion?
None.
All in favor, say aye. Any opposed, no. Motion carries. Any other business coming before the court? Not entertain a motion.
Motion adjourned, Judge.
Motion to adjourn, is there a second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Means adjourned, we do have.